and I teach for the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. I have been teaching what we call ESL, or English as an Additional Language, for 22, 23 years. And much has changed in the way that I teach, especially now with the technology that's available to us. And I am in a one-to-one iPad school, which means all of our students have an iPad. And I can tell you from experience that I have never seen so much growth and progress being made possible with the assistance of technology in that classroom. So first I'm going to give you a survey because I think we all teach different things. So if you could just kindly enter what level you teach, that would be great and very helpful in how I sort of speak to that presentation. Do you see the link on your screen? If you do, click whatever belongs to you. Farouk, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think that's pretty much everybody. So I can see that we have a lot of elementary teachers on board or supporters of EAL, English as an Additional Language learners. Um, I'm going to end the survey, Peru. Okay, it gives me an idea. Gives me an idea of how to speak to this. So this presentation was originally prepared for high schoolers, but you will see that it can be easily applied to any of the levels that you teach. Basically, what I'm going to show you are the different skills. So whether it is vocabulary and reading acquisition, listening and speaking, and writing. So all the skills they need to learn and the different pieces of technology that can support them. And I will begin with a section on vocabulary. And basically what I'm trying to show you is that there actually is visible improvement in learning, and the student work samples that I provide throughout this presentation will show you what our students are capable of doing. My experience is with all learners. So for example, with the students from Syria that came to us about 5 years ago at high school level, they came to us completely illiterate. So I have been teaching students from being completely illiterate, not just in their own language, but in any language really, and up to the academic visa student, which are the students who come from other countries and pay to learn English in an immersed environment. So here are some examples of the apps that are available to you, and I will begin with reading skills and accessibility. So all of these apps many of them are available on laptops, Chromebooks, phones. A couple of them are iPad only. So if you can get an iPad or two in your classrooms, that can also be very helpful. And I will begin with basically the basics, dictionaries. So in my classroom, I take advantage of the Google. Google is wonderful if you know how to use it. Google Translate and dictionaries for the higher level learners. We'll begin with the basics. So for a learner who has very little English or very low beginner, an image search is a great way to begin. Rather than trying to explain what something is, they can type it into the search window and it's very fast, very easy and instant comprehension. Now, if the students are not literate yet and they cannot read and write, once you get past the initial part where they can actually copy letters. They can copy those letters by typing them onto a device, and they can also find those pictures. And this is also a great way to get them started working on different projects, and they love hands-on stuff. Now, even if they don't speak English, you would be amazed how well everyone can use their phone. And so giving them that access allows them to use Google as a sort of way to start. Google Translate would be for the beginner language learner, someone who is able to read, at least in their own language, because it allows you to do single word searches, short phrases. You can type them, you can scan the text with a camera, or you can speak and listen directly into your device or phone, and it gives you a word back. I do not recommend using this once you get past a certain level of English because then it becomes confusing. This is great for one word here and there, single words, and short phrases. Once your learners are a little bit higher, like a low intermediate or a higher language learner, I recommend a Merriam-Webster online dictionary because it's very simple to use. It has not only definitions but provides a thesaurus. Teaching them how to use synonyms and antonyms is really helpful. Of course, there's nothing like having the actual paper copy of a dictionary. If you have those at your disposal, then you remember you need to actually teach the students how to use dictionaries because they have no idea what to do with those. Um, Another resource that's really fantastic are digital books and online resources. Um, so I'm going to start with, on the left there, Spark Notes. For those of you, I don't know your age group, but if you remember Cole's Notes are basically the abridged versions of Shakespeare or all the novels that you have to read in high school that nobody really understands. This is online, and this is put together by actual teachers. This is not just Wikipedia. Fantastic resources. Overdrive Media and Libby, or they now have a new name, Sora. So Overdrive is becoming Sora. These are available on any app, on any device. These are for ebooks, audiobooks. School or public libraries can access these. The students can listen to the books or read them or e-format. And it just basically provides differentiated instruction for your learner because everybody learns differently. So Spark Notes, as you can see, it's, study guides basically once the students get to that level. And you'll have the Shakespeare there, Shakespearean English on the left and real English on the right. So using Overdrive Media or Sora, basically this would be you borrowing a library book from a public library or your school library, downloading downloading it in a digital format. Um, you can use this to look up the words directly, and this is very useful. Depends on your level. Kids may have access to Kobo or Kindle. These are free apps that they can have on any device. And then, of course, you can download books that are appropriate level for your students. Um, Using Explain Everything is probably one of the best, amazing apps on an iPad for learners, especially at the lower levels. Because you can move pictures, you can make videos, you can record yourself. You can do pretty much anything with this app, and it's especially great for the elementary levels. Um, the elementary students can do a lot here. It's kind of like hands-on all the time. It's super engaging. I use this with my literacy students because we were reading a modified, basically, version of Mohicans, and because there were three storylines, they had a hard time following that. So we decided to, look at the movie there, take all the pictures of the characters, put them on the page, move them to create study notes, the good guys, the bad guys, the main characters, and they always had those as a reference note, and they can record in here, tell a story. Using Notability. Notability is an app for the iPad, and Notability is like paper, but paper on steroids really, because you can upload your existing worksheets. So if you have whatever you already have on paper, you just upload in here, except now the students can write on it, they can record over it, they can delete, they can draw. This also is a very, very powerful hands-on app that pretty much covers everything you need to do in an English learning classroom. When we read, the students write down the meanings in Arabic or whatever language as they read together. They can also listen to the text being read to them if they're not sure how to pronounce certain words. They can annotate, and you can see I draw pictures. This is really helpful for understanding. Explain everything. For those of you that have used a smart board in your classroom, you know how students really like to go up to they like to touch, they like to do, it really helps them learn. And so this would be the same thing. Anything you could have done on a smart board, you can do with Explain Everything. Again, uh, students get to move these things around, put the story back in order. So whatever level you're teaching, you can make that at your level of the student. And it's very engaging. This also allows students who move through things more rapidly than others to move along at their own pace. Book Reader is a fabulous app for elementary level students. Some of you may already be using it. It is available on all devices. And as you can see, you can do lots of stuff with it. Here's an example. You can decide what format you want to use, and all you do is plug in some pictures, type in some text. The students can tell you about their family, whatever your topic is. I always provide some sort of a model for my students to follow when they create their slides, and it ends up looking something like this. So each slide, they plug in one picture, they write in their sentences, and then they can record their voice. Now, we always begin on the blackboard, then we move to the paper, and it takes a while before we get to this, but when they get to this, they are super engaged and they love working with technology. This book creator, you can also record your voice. So if you want to read to your students, you can they can listen. I'll give you a sample here. So you can record yourself or they can listen to a book they created. Here's an example of a student who had never attended school before in his whole life. He was laying carpet. He was from Syria, then he moved to Turkey, doesn't have parents. He came to us at 15 years old and we thought school was crazy. Um, we didn't know what to do with him, 15-year-old. But he learned. So here's a sort of a compilation of a few apps. He created this in Book Creator. Then we put it into Explain Everything and we made a video. And I'm just going to show you a short excerpt of some of the work he put together. Here is an example. My name is Abdul. I am 16 years old. I have one brother and 5 sisters. I live in I live in I live in a house. My kids. So basically, we did chunks of different topics, and by the end of the year, we put it together, and we sort of created a final project to show of all the stuff that we had learned in class. And for him, I like Canada because Canada is a country. Canada is a and he needed some help with that. That's a big word. Canadian. But basically what you see is there's a lot of work here. The student was super excited to put this together, and it sort of shows off of what he could do by the end. Accessibility. Accessibility feature is fantastic. You can have that set up on your laptops, desktops, iPads, phones. And using text to speech is very useful. Basically, you look up accessibility on whatever device you have. You can select speech, and then you check off what you need. You can even choose how quickly, you can see the turtle there, how quickly the speaker speaks to you, which is very useful. And then you can even select, do you want the words bolded in a certain color so that it's easier to follow those words? Do you want a different accent? Maybe you'd like to listen to English with a US accent or Australian. You can select that as well. And so this is great in the classroom because this allows the students to hear the words. I have many students who struggle with certain words and they don't know how to pronounce them. And if they pronounce them wrong, then they sort of misunderstand what they've read. So over here, I'm going to give you an example of what it sounds like when you have text-to-speech on an iPad. Day Canada helps people across the country recognize and celebrate the largest environmental event in the world every year on April 22nd. We also work to make Earth Day every day through our award-winning year-round programs. So this is pretty good quality sound. So anything they look up in a browser, they can listen to it, especially if they're still struggling to sound words out. In Book Creator, it sounds a little different, and this is why we use it for the lower end learner, because in high school they would like to, just this is red, red, red. They call me red, red, red. I am in bed. And I apologize, the delay in reading and the yellow is because of the video itself. It is not delayed. I just made this book because that's all we could do. We could do the first line of phonics, and we had nothing else to work with. So we had to make up our own book so that they could read and listen on what they could do. Notability also allows that. This is what it sounds like. And again, the speed, the speed, you can check yourself how quickly you want that voice to read to you. That totally depends on the student himself. And my favorite is text-to-speech and explain everything because the quality is closest to a human voice. Here's an example. You have two voices when you speak in English or your mother tongue. When you speak the way your people spoke, the words don't hesitate but flow like rivers, like rapids, like oceans of sound, and your hands move like birds through the air. And that brings me to the end of this section. So I was going to ask if anybody had any questions at this point, and Peru, I'm not sure how we're going to go about answering. Do we listen? Do I look at the typing? Do they speak the questions? Peru?
Yeah. It's so participants can either text their questions in, or they can use the microphone, their microphone.
Are there any questions at this time about this particular section? I don't see any messages coming through.
I think you can go ahead.
Oh, I see a question about math. Oh, that's, have you ever used a smartboard in a classroom for math? You know, when you can have coins, when you say you're teaching money, money sense, or numbers, you can sort of do the same thing with explain everything. Because you can move things around, you can sort of make them infinite. This is a great way to demonstrate learning, shapes or well, if you can think it, you can do it and explain everything. So whatever your idea is. I know that the teachers in our school specifically use explain everything a lot in math. And I mean, I could always refer you to the math specialist in our school. But if you can have an idea on what you would do in your classroom, you can actually make it happen here. If you are typing in the text, then yes, it would read it to them. Absolutely. So if you're typing in 2 plus 3 equals 5, for example, with text, you're typing it in, and then they have the option to listen to it. Okay. Any other questions? If you don't mind, then I will move on to the next part. Peru, is that okay? Moving on to the next part.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay, the next part is vocabulary. So, learning English is all about learning words, and there are different ways to do it. Um, I think elementary teachers are especially really, really great with this. It's a little harder to get the older students to want to learn words and write them down. So we got to find creative ways to help them learn. Also, as you already know, the younger learners learn a lot faster than their secondary counterparts. So these are some of the apps. Again, some of them will repeat because they're very useful here as well. The Q that you see on the bottom left, that is a Quizlet, which is a fantastic way to have fun with words. So let's begin. Quizlet is basically a web-based game. If you already use Kahoot, Quizlet takes it to the next level, right? You can have flashcards, practicing, writing, spelling, listening, matching, and this is available on absolutely any device, which makes it so much fun. And I have my students use it as a homework tool where they can prepare for vocabulary related stuff. Here's just an example of what it looks like. So you set up your teacher account, and your teacher account doesn't cost anything. And then you can set up your classes. And in those classes, you can upload whatever words. And say you're teaching, I don't know, say you're teaching words of the house, furniture, or fruit. So you can have the word banana and put in a picture banana, and they can study those and have fun. But also you can search and you can find other teachers who have already created this. And then you can copy and borrow their work. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. And then you customize it. Maybe they have some words in there that you are not teaching. You simply delete those and make your own. This is from my class, and we teach idioms to one of my levels. And these are the different activities that they can do. They can learn the words, sort of, you have your definitions. For my lower level learners, I use pictures. So if I have the word wake up, I would have a picture of what waking up looks like for them. So again, it's modified to the level. Flashcards, writing, spelling, set up tests and quizzes, and then the live is probably their favorite part when they get to play in the classroom. They can type in this little code 234027 and they can play with the whole class. It is a lot of fun. You can also use it for quizzes, and if you're teaching higher levels, you can do more stuff with it. But I'm just showing you the basics here. So here are some samples of worksheets from actually my teaching experience. Anything you had on paper, you can now give them in a digital format. So where we used to use paper, have them copy the stuff, they can now write directly or type directly into any of these apps label, and then they can listen to the words. If I'm giving a quiz on vocabulary, I will have the answer sheet and match it. So I'm not actually asking them for spelling the words. I'm asking them, do you know the words? What are these body parts? Um, with a higher level, when I'm teaching punctuation, we can do that there, and then we can erase it and fix it as we take it up in the classroom. Basics, basics. You can create your own worksheets or you borrow the ones that exist online. Over here, the worksheet with the body parts that you see is something that is something that I did with my very, very early learners. So what I would do is provide them simply an empty table and have those 16 words over there, the body parts that we have been working on for a long time. And then they have to go on their iPads or whatever device, they have to find the pictures and put the pictures into the boxes, label, and then they use this as their own dictionary sheet. And you can do that with just about anything. In Explain Everything here, I created a template. When they were learning the daily routine verbs. And so I had, as you saw the Arabic flash by there, I had another student, a senior student, recorded in Arabic so they could listen to the expressions or, you see the word mother and then they give it to you in Arabic so they know what it is. And they could move these things, and eventually, once they have lots of practice, they will create their own routine. They can record their voice. They can type the sentences. This is a very fun, very, very great app for engagement. Another example would be whatever vocab you're teaching, create one template and you have it forever. It's kind of like photocopying a worksheet over and over again. Except this one, they like this one, I think it had 16 or something pages. So they can show you, do I know this word? They can listen to the words. Oh, pencil, right. You can put it in alphabetical order to have them recognize that there's an alphabet or mix it up, trick them. Then eventually, your next template could be, let's build sentences with it. So it is a very much lends itself to a step-by-step. Ah, so here was a way that we learned a map of Canada. Again, another template where they got to practice a lot, and eventually at the end of it, they had to demonstrate learning and put the appropriate provinces in the appropriate place on the map and tell me what they're called. So again, this is the same explain everything. Using diagrams that you would, Venn diagrams, whatever tables you're using in your classroom on paper, on the blackboard, construction paper, labeling charts, graphs, parts of a fish, whatever it may be. I also use it as rubrics, so it's really, really easy for me to go up to a student, ask him the necessary questions, and I can then pass that on to the next teacher at the next level using a variety of activities, gap style activities that you do in your classroom where students walk up to each other and exchange information, or simply do tests. Here, the student can listen to the story, so they make sure they understand the story, then answer your questions, and there is your test. So that's vocabulary. At this point, I will ask if there are any questions. No questions? One of the great things, one of the great things with doing different types of worksheets is that if a student is going quicker than another student or needs to listen to those words, then they can have that support. You just have to make sure that they have headphones with them in their classroom. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to move on to the next part. Now, what would be more useful for you? Writing, because I think that might be a little bit higher level than what you might be doing in elementary, or listening and speaking. I think I will go with listening and speaking to show you what is available, a little more useful. Now, in listening and speaking, there are lots of different ways to do stuff. Oh, someone said writing. All right. So for writing, there are two great apps, Google Docs and Notability. They are both great for all types of writing. Whatever type of writing you want to do, you can do here. They're basically a substitution of paper. The one in the middle, the Commons, that is a website. So if you have a website for your class, that's another way to get them to write little blogs, little comments. So we always begin with paper, and We teach them how to do an indent, how to do a proper paragraph, and then the students learn how to use the technology to support that. So when they start typing into Google Docs or in Notability, they also get prompts for correction and spelling errors or sentence errors, which is really helpful. They can listen to their text so they can actually hear it back. Does that sound about right? So that's very useful. You can see it looks really nice. My future plans. And so that is corrected when we put it into a digital format. I may use a notability note where we're studying a certain tense. We write some examples. We work on this in class oral practice. And then I have those same examples turned into a paragraph using teaching transitions. So again, it really depends on what level of writing you are doing. You can do pretty much anything here. And larger essays for higher level learners. We do a lot of interviews where students can interview each other and eventually, and it ends up as a writing template. So whatever the activity is, interview someone out there where they live, what their favorite things are, and then they have to go write about it. Blogging, I don't know if any of you have websites, so I don't want to sort of talk over something that you may not be able to do, but I love YouTube. YouTube is great. You can use your website if you have a website to put in find some appropriate videos for yourself, ask your student to watch it, and then ask them to talk about it. So they can perhaps watch a video about something and then use even Book Creator to write a reflection or their thoughts or comments that they have to talk about. Again, it depends on the topics you cover in the elementary school. The posts, students are asked to watch a video and then they have to tell me what they thought or what they learned and get very clear indication if you need to work on in the class to support them better because they are not afraid to blog. They are not afraid to write short little comments because they all text all the time. And when I see all those little posts, I know that I have to work, say, on transitions or punctuation or whatever. And I choose videos that are engaging to that age group, and then accordingly I will ask them to give me a comment and reflect. Bring it back to yourself. How do you use your phone? We also share things about their culture, which is fantastic, and they all get to read about each other's cultures. Another way you can do this is you can share this in Flipgrid. So they can do a writing piece and upload it to Flipgrid, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And so everyone can see what they're talking about. And if you have a moment to actually look at this post and read it a little bit, you will notice that this student in September had issues with punctuation. Everything was sort of stuck together. Uh, it wasn't horrible, but it needed a lot of work. So when you look at this one, and the date over there is September 20th, and 2 months later, November 18th, the same student wrote this post, which looks a lot different. The reason why it seems to be so much better than the other one is because we had done so much practice with writing, um, non-threatening writing with little posts, little blogs, little mini paragraphs that it really helped and sped up this student's learning. Okay, so any questions about the writing piece? So I will go ahead. Speaking and listening. Some of you may be using Flipgrid already. That's the green one right there. I don't know if you guys do podcasts where you have the students record their voices. And the yellow one there, that's Adobe Spark. That's a really, really great great one to use, especially in elementary, because it is so easy. So how do you get your students to talk, and how do you get them to practice their listening? This is just a little blurb about our Commons is basically our website. No, not every teacher has a website. That sort of depends up to you if you want to use a website. But I use it to post videos. I can even post grammar lessons. That way I can provide DI for my students. They didn't get the lesson on paper or in my class on the board or through practice and they need a little extra. I have them watch a little video which helps them. I can also find videos in their own language which help explain a point. Um, YouTube is also great for listening when you're trying to give them background information for something because pictures speak 1,000 words and sometimes their listening skills are so much stronger than any other skill that they have that if you show them a little video, a little background video maybe on animals or whatever you may be covering, that helps them understand and it gets the sort of creative juices flowing. On the internet, there are so many existing resources posted by other teachers and shareable that you can find whatever you need over there to help you supplement your teaching in the classroom. So for example, I found a website, it's called eslvideo.com, and they have great resources from all levels, right from the low ones to the higher ones. And what I do is I put it in, the students listen to the song, and as the song plays, they will answer. It's like a listening close exercise, which then scores it, and then you get the score, and they can do common, modern songs or whatever they like. You can create this for your students. It's very simple to do. Okay, so they listen. Here we go. Next one. And then I can ask them, how did you do on the listening? And of course, high school students, they can do a little bit of bragging, like a tell me how you did, and then reflect. We do a lot of that. YouTube also has amazing short videos that explain a topic. And then I have my students turn that video into a presentation in the classroom. So maybe watch a little video on a lion or watch it in one of the books. Then create a Google slide presentation, which is what many elementary students will use. YouTube videos, again, listen to a video and then tell me back. Explain to me what that video was about. Or go ahead and record yourself. Record your voice, one of those apps or devices. Tell me what it was about. Summarize it for me. Halloween is the one of the oldest holidays still celebrated today. Listening close. Still do those. I still do that in my classroom where I have a piece of paper with the missing words and then the students listen to a tape. I have a cassette tape that I still use. It is a novel. It is a book. They listen to the book throughout the semester and we do it piece by piece. This is for my beginners using Notability. I create the text and I record it and the students get to circle what they hear. I did this when I was teaching Jolly Phonics to my students from Syria and we would just have the sound. So I would just go and they would have to write it down and they would listen to it as many times as they needed to get it right. And while one student may have only done one listening, another student would have been able to go through two or three. Using technology in the classroom allows the students to work at their own pace, and this is probably one of the best advantages because everyone can learn. They don't have to wait sort of for the slowest student to understand the lesson. So you can record your voice or you can turn it around and have them read it to you, which I will show you in a bit as well. Podcasts or recordings, some of the elementary students like to talk. Given the topic, what are you learning about? And then ask them to record a podcast, a 30-second podcast, a 1-minute podcast. What do they think is the problem? Maybe we read a story and reflect on it that way. It just engages them more than just having to write everything on a piece of paper. Uh, when you start your class, I don't know, high school students tend to be late, so we may start with a picture on the screen and we turn that into whatever. Is it a pair share? You know, what happened? Tell me what happened. What's going on? What is this? Discuss with your classmate or at your table and then speak back, report back to me. We have a lot of fun with that. And there is no shortage of wonderful, um, wonderful pictures on your Facebook account, in your Facebook account, or anywhere else that you could use to get the students to talk. Can use it to do interviews. So go interview or take a poll. Take a poll in the class. How many students prefer red? How many students have a favorite season, such and such? And you can draw graphs and so on. So they are talking. When they are doing interviews, this is what it looks like in the classroom. Everyone is engaged. I don't have anybody hiding. Maybe at the very beginning, maybe they be a little shy, but eventually everybody participates. So again, always I begin on the blackboard, then they get the supporting documentation on paper, and then they get to discuss it. It's kind of like covering all the different skills and making sure that everyone can learn, because not everyone can learn from just reading it. Some people need to discuss it and talk about it. And here, okay, so this student was 19 years old when he came to us from Syria, and he was illiterate in his own language. He told me, I can't learn, I'm stupid, through translation, and at which point I said, no, that's not happening in my classroom. And so with him, we started with Jolly Phonics, because that's where we had to start. And yes, this is in high school. Um, and this document here, I created that for him because we only had so many words, so many letters he could read. So we basically customize it to the student you have. Then I had him record his voice. So the Notability has tons of flexibility to customize to whatever level student you have. And that means that they're not sitting in the back of the room waiting for something to happen because you have so many students in your class. This student can be learning at their own pace because the technology makes it possible. All your students, you ask them to read and record their voice. And if your students can read and you need a reading sample but don't have time to get through all your students, you ask them to read and record their voice. And so the great thing is that they're doing this at home. They are continuing to learn at home, not just in the classroom. Here is another way to use the explain everything. Again, moving parts, recording voices, fun. So this little project started with an interview. Students were given so many questions, go interview a partner. Then they had to answer the questions in writing. Then they had to write it from a third person, find some pictures, create a video, and use their voice. It's a different way, a different take on teaching grammar, and they had a great time. The next step would be to take this video and share it with your class through Flipgrid. Here is another student from Syria using Explain Everything. Yeah, and those are her parents, and Bushra and her two siblings are still with us. They have made a lot of progress. They've been here now for 2 years, and they are learning. All three siblings are being successful at moving through the different levels. But it took some time. And again, with technology, they were able to do a lot of different things. Now, in elementary, you don't use Keynote, which is like PowerPoint. It's a little complicated. But at elementary, you use Google Slides. Same idea. I have a son, he's in grade 3, and he does a lot of Google Slide presentations in his classroom, whether that be about an animal or whatever the case may be. So engaging them through Google Slides and having to present to your classmates is a great way to get the kids talking. Anytime there is a special event like the Olympics or anything else, I take an opportunity to have them present that to their classmates. And continuing on, this is still listening and speaking. With my students, we also do feedback. So when someone comes to present, we engage all the learners by giving feedback. Talk about the voice and eye contact and the pictures they had in their presentation. So it's an interactive event. It's not just the presenter presenting, it's also the listeners, the students in the room who are taking part. Um, Another great way to showcase your voice is through Flipgrid. I love Flipgrid. It's one of my favorites for listening and speaking. The students can introduce themselves. Now, you may have students who are really shy and don't want to talk to a camera. Well, Flipgrid has options where they can use a sort of whiteboard or blackboard that sort of covers the whole screen. You can only hear their voice, so you cannot see their face. Another way they can uh, cover their face is through the blur out of your face, kind of like doing um, one of those I don't want you to know my identity blur, and it's fun. And so here is a sample from a student. Hello everyone, my name is Miriam. I'm from Afghanistan and I'm 19 years old. I live in Hamilton, Ontario, and on free time I like to go shopping. Of course, many students at the secondary level, they love to talk and take selfies and all that, so they're not shy. Uh, in my classroom, we use Flipgrid to do international exchanges. So we actually reach out to teachers all over the place. Right now, we have an exchange going on with students from Jakarta who are also learning English. Um, Here is just a slide I'm going to show you. This student here, Martin, is from Jakarta, who was responding to Mohammed from my class, and they were having a sort of across the seas discussion about stuff. Here is another way to use Flipgrid and Adobe Voice. So Adobe Spark or Adobe Voice is the yellow one. Students can download that on their phone. Take a photo of anything. Ask your students to take a photo of a bird, a tree, and then they can record their voice. It's that simple to use. So my students do the same thing, except I give them a choice. Pick a topic, create a 2-minute video. Hi everyone, my name is Naz. Today I'm going to talk about Grand Canyon. It's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Grand Canyon is located in Arizona in the United States. It was discovered on September 1540 by the first Europeans. So basically, we are showcasing their ability and what they can do. They have to go do the research, they record their voice, and then because of Flipgrid's ability to share that information, their classmates get to watch that video and they can give them feedback. It's up to you to set that up as a shareable activity. Here's another idea where you use 3 different apps. You could use Google Slides or Keynote, record your voice, share it in the Classroom Flipgrid app. This one here is a recording of a poem. So if you can think of an idea, your students will do it. Rather than standing in front of the class and recording a poem, I ask them to, please, here is the poem on paper. Go figure out a way you want to present it to me, but I need to hear your voice. So this student, this is her take on a poem about speaking another language. So this particular student, who was shy and her English was, as we say, broken, she presented at this year's Remembrance uh, assembly in front of the whole school, which is a really big feat for a learner of English as an additional language. I also invite students to share in their own language. So someone who maybe not be able to share in English just yet, I ask them to do the same thing, share with us in your language. And when he read it to the class in Arabic, it didn't matter that we didn't understand what he was saying. We could see and feel the passion and the beauty of it, regardless of understanding the words. And it made him feel really important that he was able to participate, and so again, it's all about making the students feel confident about learning. Or another way, you can take an article, read a story, ask the students to share that, summarize it, and prepare a presentation like this one. Sure. And so lots of different ways to do this. One of my students, Mohammed was very shy. He came from the elementary system and he went through, basically started out with being non-speaker, non-reader. And so when he joined us in high school in grade 9, I was very worried. And once we found out that he loved praise, he became very eager to learn. So after he made this video, which was very scaffolded in terms of information, I published it on our YouTube channel. And the Friday I told him I did that. Monday he came back and said, "Hey, miss, I got 9D." Like, oh, wow. So he was super excited to share his learning, and from that point on, he was a super avid learner. So again, you could take Google Slides, have your students put together some pictures with some text, and then they could take just screenshots of those slides and upload them into Google Spark. And then they can record their voice, and it turns it into a video for them. You don't have to do anything. You don't need to figure things out. It's super easy to use, and you can show that in the class. They have a lot of fun doing that. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you